Well, we are. Well, we are. This is the show. We are live on another Wednesday, another episode of the Mattriarchy, which way I've been doing. I've been doing this show on most Wednesdays now for like 6 or 7 years, something like that.
Which in podcasting years is like 70.
Something. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. Today, my host is my host. My host is me. Come on. No, my guest is John Lenox.
Jason.
Jason. My guest is my eternal embarrassment. And
don't call me late for dinner, right?
Yeah, there you go. But I tell you what though, I have a new shirt. So just picked up this shirt there.
Oh, very Hawaiian-ish.
Yes, I quite like it, especially like it's a very good simulated ink wash on it. So
nice. Cartoonicus is with us. That sounds intense. Cartoonicus.
We are already live. So
yeah, I started way early.
Yeah, we did. We started actually on time almost today. So all the guys have gotten used to me being very late, but I was not very late today.
Not today, baby. On early. Cartoonicus sounds very serious.
I sound very serious.
Oh, your name.
Cartoonicus, yeah. Right? It's like Roman emperor. I am Cartoonicus. But yet it's a cat in a library, which is not serious. Yeah. Can cats read? Seems unrealistic.
Anthro-cats can read, of course.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so Jason was on, and I was telling him before we went live that whether we didn't finish talking about it because I was close to late. I went back. Jason has been here before, despite my getting his first name wrong. Jason had been on before in April, I think it was, of 2021. And to talk about book 4 in his series, Lords of the Cosmos.
Yeah.
And I did not realize, I realized it was a while. I did not realize that it was, coming up on 4 years now. That was shocking to me. And
wow.
Yeah. Hello, Fizz. And the other thing that I was not stunned, I was a little surprised because it's been so long that it's the next issue that you are crowdfunding for right now, issue 5.
Yeah. So I'm kind of slow and deliberate, and I had another not comic book project between issues that I've wanted to do for a long time. So there was kind of a detour into the coloring book world. But yeah, no, I'm back. And, the weird thing about indie comics and podcasting, and I learned this through kind of reaching out to places that I've been on before, is a lot of people give up. They disappear. They lose interest. They find different things. And then you'll say, oh, that guy never did it again. He must have quit. And it is interesting because I approached this book a little differently. Normally, I would have put it on Kickstarter when it was like half complete and then raise money for it and then say, no, I'll finish it. But because of shipping costs and printing costs being so quick to change,
yes.
I was like, I need to do everything up front. So the books, I've run test prints, they're ready to go. So I took more time on the upfront, which caused it to take longer to get done than I would have in the past, because I'd seen some other creators in the last couple of years get just destroyed because they budgeted their books for a certain price, and then it took them a long time to get done. And then when they went to the printing and shipping end of it, just got destroyed.
Well, and that, I tell you, the weirdest thing about the whole indie press side of things is how drastically that hyperinflation of the last year and a half. Well, I guess it was probably to be more fair, it was a year ago, a year and a half. I mean, we're still in the middle of it, but the spikes aren't what they were. We haven't gone down any, but we're not going spiking as much as we were. So
right.
For a year and a half, probably ended about a year ago.
This is the 13th time I've done a crowdfunding project, and I'll say this: I've never felt as much headwind to do one of these as I am now. And I always compare like for like. So to me, I've looked at this project compared to the prior issues, and I think I've done more work promoting this, and it seems like it's more difficult than any prior issue. And I do think two huge issues is we've had to charge more for books and shipping in the campaign to not lose money. And then I think most regular folks, the cost of, things they need, heat, cooling, housing, groceries, electric have gone up. So I think it's definitely, since it's been, 3 years and change since Lords of the Cosmos 4, Lords 5 starts off as a project in a much more difficult market for these kinds of projects because people don't need these things, right?
Right.
So it definitely, we charging more, people have less. Like it's definitely, I can feel it.
It was a pinch on that. Now, one of the things too that I like I said, I went back to watch most of our last show.
Yes.
One of the things that you had found a lot of joy, encouragement, satisfaction of at that time, you mentioned was that you were doing project managing, and you were a bunch of different artists you were working with, and a couple different writers. With this project, is it the same kind of thing where you've got the gang back together, or is it that itself changed with the environment as well?
It's a slightly different gang. Each issue has been a little bit different, right? There's some same team members. And no, that does give me a lot of joy. That hasn't gone away. I get a lot of enjoyment out of working with a team and building a book. And there's always a deep sense of satisfaction in doing that. And I love collaborating with other engaged, smart, creative, talented people. Like that's like a pleasure to do that. It's a different gang on this book, but each book is its own unique statement. And you bring back some people, and then sometimes there's different people for whatever reason, availability, schedule, creative direction. So this book was blessed with another super lineup of creative people, some new, some returning. So yeah, it is always a pleasure, and I've enjoyed all the friendships that I've made and creative areas. Cartoonicus, are you okay?
Yeah, flood alert.
Oh, well, a flood alert?
Flood alert.
Not sure why. I live in the mountains. Whatever.
I'm like worried. I'm like, you're like a Roman emperor, but you're a anthropomorphic cat in a library. Now it's a flood. It's a lot of emotions with Cartoonicus. No, all those things are still a pleasure, man. Ultimately, that's really a huge part of why I do it, because I love working with a team to make a book. And books like this, I mean, I really couldn't do it on my own. I think one of the biggest strengths of Lords of the Cosmos is that there's been a lot of different voices and hands involved in these projects, which give them a very unique flair.
One second. Sorry. I was already typing a message to one of my other regulars, and I thought you were still talking. I've only had enough time to get it in before you finished your statement, but I was wrong. I tell you, we're the best produced show on the internet.
We really are.
So there we are. I'm back for the reels. I didn't really go anywhere, just in the mind. So what the it's the 5th volume, but I know also Lords of the Cosmos is a little bit of an anthology.
Yes.
Series. Is there? I know there's a uniting world with all of it, but is there like a single story that runs through the different little stories, or is it just within that setting?
So the main story has been going since issue 1, and that's the main narrative that all the little narratives kind of branch off of. So one thing that's a little bit different in this one is one of the extra stories is a to be continued. So it's like one of the little stories is kind of its own little tree going in a different direction, but where it's a little bit bigger. And I think that's going to be a 3-parter over 3 issues. So it'll probably take us another 10 years to get done, right? Hopefully it's not that bad. But no, the main story is the main trunk of the tree, and then the little stories kind of branch off, and some of those, kind of branch back into each other. So there is a side story in the new book that ties back into stuff in issue 2 and issue 4. So the more we do of Lords of the Cosmos, the more there starts to be, it's more of a spider web that interconnects some of these like little dramatic side and back stories of like, oh, we're going to reference this from issue 2 and issue 4 because they're all the characters are living in their little Lords of the Cosmos world.
I also realized that we totally skipped past in this conversation, we totally skipped past what Lords of the Cosmos is for people that did not watch 3 years ago.
Well, shame on them.
So yeah, everybody pause what you're doing.
All right.
Pause the stream, go on into a disc, go load up the old show and watch it, and then come back.
So I am going to cheat because I typed up a little description that is actually really handy. And I'm going to go find that real quick because I like to read it because it's actually better than I could just make up real quickly on my own.
Nice.
So
we really need Twitless here to do the old pitch.
Here's the pitch. All right. So Lords of the Cosmos is a 1980s twin cartoon-inspired anthology comic book that takes place on a fantastic world of magic and technology, under siege by savage villains, where ancient heroes have to return to save the world. So there's your elevator pitch. And from a practical standpoint, it is a jumbo size, and in the case of issue 5, 44 internal sequential pages, black and white anthology. So I would say, books that you might know that are like that, 2000 AD and Heavy Metal, right? Maybe Weird War Tales from DC, but that was in color. I love that book too.
Oh, that's a great series.
So books like that, right? So there's different stories in this book, but they're all in the same universe. So yes, it's similar in tone to He-Man, Thundercats, Flash Gordon, and Thundar the Barbarian. Those are 4 kind of flavors that the DNA for this book has in it. And a little bit of Transformers because all the characters have a logo. There's a good guy logo and a bad guy logo. So everyone's got a logo on them, which I always thought was cool as a kid, right?
Which, yeah, that's also like, you had all that kind of branding on your G.I. Joes or whatever, too.
Yep.
Where it was,
Yep.
And
I, as an OCD adult kid in the 80s, that always appealed to me. So I wanted this to have that in as well, where the heroes have their little planet with a sword on a triangle, and the bad guys have a hand with a robotic eye in front of a hexagon, right? So they're branded, and I liked that as a kid, and it just kind of stuck with me. So we tried to put that in there. So
here's the question: you really enjoyed that as a kid, but did you have any problems adapting that thinking into the real world, where anybody in a Packers jersey was automatically the devil or something?
I mean, there's all kinds of branding in the real world, but for the sake of this, it's the Lords of the Cosmos universe. So the Lords of the Cosmos are the heroes, so they have their logo, and the Disciples of Umex are the bad guys, and they have their logo. So for the sake of this little world, it made sense. Yes, much more complicated, and we want to make an escape. So it's very simplistic, I would say, in a way, because it's like, here's the good guys and here's the bad guys.
So red lightsaber, blue lightsaber.
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid. Kiss, right? The old right.
So now with the inspiration coming from children's toys and cartoons and those sort of things, is this an all ages property, or is this something that is like, the grown Josh looking back, Jason? Oh my God.
John, Jason, don't call me
John,
Jamie.
Jacob, Jim Jingleheimer Smith.
There you go.
That's the one.
Name too.
Yeah, that's the one, Jason. I suck today. Is it the grown Jason looking back and reinterpreting those memetics through the eyes of an adult.
So if you had like a dial, right, of like turn it up, like a lot of those 80s shows were a little light on the violence. Like they kind of did stuff like they're shooting guns, but like it was like I'll shoot you in your plane, and then it's like you'll jump out with a parachute. So Lords of the Cosmos definitely has a little more violence. But it is not, I would call it, if I had to put a rating on it, I might call it like a soft R PG-13 where there's a little bit of violence. Not too bad. I would say like teens, like 13, 14. I wouldn't give it to like a 7-year-old, right? So there's more violence. It's a little sexier, but like, you know what I mean? It's not like a Bisley book where they're just tearing people. Well, there is some people that get shot and stuff in the book, so there's a little bit of violence, but not too bad. I would say it's a soft RPG-13.
And the reason I specifically asked is I was scoping the crowdfund there for number 5. I noticed that one of the main characters is a dominatrix sorceress, and I was like, well, that's a really interesting take on it. In my webcomic Force of Good and Evil, we have a dominatrix supervillain, and we of course it's marketed at older teens. Well, I mean, we wrote it. It's not marketed to anyone because I'm terrible at marketing, but it's intended for an older teen, young adult audience.
Yeah, and we might be an older teen audience. You know what I mean? Like that's fair, right? So I mean, yeah. So Zemba, the Spotlight, she was a character that kind of floated in a little bit in the background of the prior issue. She was in a couple. She was a foil in a backup story in issue 2 where she got embarrassed. And the spotlight from our writing sessions went to her in this issue because Lords of the Cosmos is like a floating spotlight where different characters come into focus. So issue 5 really kind of turned into her story, and she plays a big role in the main story. And then one of the backup stories is why she's behaving the way she is in the main story. So one of the things we had talked about for a long time is kind of a running discussion was, what is a day in her life like?
Okay.
Right. We always kind of viewed her as kind of this alpha lady, super boss, dominatrix. So one of the things we talked about is like we should tell a story about what's her life like. What is her day to day like? And because a lot of the villains aren't human, and she's one of the ones that identifies as human. And I had a really good idea that I got with my friend Brendan Hikes, who's a writer in Pittsburgh, and I said I really want her day to day lifestyle to be shown like the scene in the 1984 David Lynch adaptation of Dune, where the Harkonnens are introduced in that horrific green metal space where the Baron is like bathing in oil, and they have a teenage kid in a plastic suit they kill, and then they're like, whatever. And I always found that whole scene to be very disturbing. So we kind of tried to put her story in that tone. And I think we hit the nail on the head. And it's a little spicy in that story. There's some creepy body horror and violence in her origin story, but that's kind of what made sense to us. So yeah, older teens.
Yeah. Well, and like, you know, when you come to some of those elements that they just play, I mean, like in Dune, right? So much of that, or even you have some elements of that in although not necessarily quite the same explicitness, but in well, yeah, I guess it would be. It's just not in the same. It's in a different tone, but it's the same kind of material in a Blade Runner, and so you have the idea of some of that. I'm trying to think of the word for it. It's not quite exploitation, but like if exploitation had like a next door neighbor, that can really be like a shortcut to discuss the thought process within the characters.
That scene from Lynch's film stuck with me because I remember all the characters were sweating, and then the one character has like a little mouse in a plastic cube, and he just crushes it and then like sucks it out, and everyone, and the beauty of it is all the characters just roll with it. And then there was a very weird part of that was really upsetting to me as a kid, because I saw it when I was a kid, where this young kid comes in with flowers, and he's got this weird clear plastic suit on, and then it's this kind of weird, like they're touching his face, and you tell he's scared, and then there's guys with like machine guns, and this kid's putting these flowers out, and then the Baron, like they have a plug in his heart. He just is like, oh, he just pulls it, and the kid bleeds out. And he like holds him, and you're like, "Ooh," you know what I mean? Like it's kind of, is this murder? Is it sexual? I don't even know what I'm watching. It's very creepy. And then the actor that plays Harkonnen, Baron Harkonnen, is floating, and he's having like motor oil poured on him, and you're like, he just killed that kid. The nephews are like eating mice in plastic boxes, laughing, and there's a guy with wires coming out of his eyes that was like poking him. He has like sores on his face, and you're just kind of like in a 5 or 6 minute scene. You walk away saying these guys are very disturbing, and they live in a place that's alien. So what we wanted to show with Zemba was that she lives in a place that, while not the same, has a similar off-putting vibe. So some of the things she's doing is because it's called a day in the life. So she starts her day by getting her portrait painted. And then one of her servants makes a comment that her painting is almost as nice as the leader's painting. And then, of course, she has the painter's hands cut off and just pitting people. And she has lunch with another character that was introduced in issue 4. And they have lunch in a torture garden where they're eating. Their lunch table is a guy's body where there's fungus growing out of it. And they're eating the fungus while they're just having a girls' chat at lunch. And you're like, wow, that's, kind of, and they just do it like it's regular, right? Like we're just eating food that's growing out of this guy. Is he alive? Is he dead? Who knows, right? And that was fun because I wanted to portray her as an exotic villain because we love the baddies, right? Are we the baddies? So I wanted to make
that kind of exaggeration, where that unsettling exaggeration is one of those things that is instinctively demonstrative of the nature of the character, right? So it's like the when you think about like Clockwork Orange, right? And the Dragos, and how like normal they were for the vile things they were doing, right? Everything they did were things they were doing it in the way that teenage boys hanging out do anything. It just happened to be, murder and violence and assault and that kind of thing. But the manner in which they were doing it wasn't unfamiliar. The actions were unfamiliar to the audience, and that unsettlingness reinforced the brokenness, or at least the depravity of the main characters, which then goes on to explain like when you think about where I can't remember the Malcolm McDowell's character's name. I remember his name, but not his character's name.
Don't
Alex?
do this to me, man. Alec.
Where when he becomes the victim, how that is contrasted. Because even though he kind of has it coming, he also doesn't. So because like that's one of those situations. Totally off subject, sorry, but his situation is one of those where like death would have been more merciful than the life he was given afterwards, and maybe even more fitting for the kinds of crimes he was involved in. But we're not here to talk about Clockwork Orange.
We're here to talk about Lords of the Cosmos. And I think one of the things that we've had fun with our side stories is we can explore different spaces, because I don't want all of Lords of the Cosmos to be that. Right. But it was fun to do a detour into that space, and then we can come back. Right. And that's one of the things I like about this project is we can take detours into different spaces, and we can have fun with it. So some of the stories that we have on ice that need to go into print, one is kind of a newspaper strip type story where it's about one of the heroes, and it's kind of a feel good story, and so I like having a project that we can be positive, we can be negative, we can explore the baddies, we can explore a hero overcoming problems, and I think that's fun, and it's fun creatively to mix it up, and I think it's fun as a reader that you maybe don't know what you're going to get. Are we going to go in the good guy direction, the bad guy direction, like somewhere in the middle? Just have a straight up adventure, and I enjoy that. It's fun for me as a creator, writer, artist, etc., to explore those spaces with my friends.
So one side note, I have a serious question, but first I have
Yes.
a joking comment, which is that I absolutely love the giant battle tortoise. That's amazing. It tangibly reminds me of both the Dino Riders, the cartoon, and this, you're gonna think this is crazy. The what was it called? I forget the name of the property now. I'm thinking, the Glowworms. I don't know if you remember the Glowworms cartoon, but the Glowworms cartoon, which was a very, My Little Pony style fantasy story for like 5-year-olds. And I was a little older than that then. But there were all these little glowing animals that lived in this magical like bug village. And they had a friend who was a turtle, who was a giant compared to all of them. And the giant tortoise, the giant turtle toy that you could buy, you could twist open the shell and store your little glowworms figurines inside of it.
Okay, that's a connection. I'm going to let you own that one because I'm not feeling it. With
it was the tactical shell reminded me of that toy. Not that it's a direct. I mean, it was only in my head, but I had to tell the story anyway, just because it was like the tactical shell reminded me of that toy.
I was honestly thinking about Zoids.
Well,
Zoids. I'm not familiar with Zoids.
Zoids were little kind of robot toys from Toei, I think. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I had a bunch of those. They were really fun, and they were weird, and they were like kind of robot dinosaur / creatures. Like there was a spider, there was a T-Rex. There's a bunch of weird things. I had, I think, most of them. There was a big one called the Zoids Giant Zerg, I think it was, or Zerk. It was like a big, it was like a large brontosaurus type robot with guns. And I remember I broke the tail and had to glue it. Thank you for remembering that, Cartoonicus. I had forgotten about them. But no, so that big turtle, his name is Iron Shell. And we like him too. And there's been a lot of love just for that one image. And we do have a story written for his origin that I think is pretty badass. And we'll have to get that drawn one of these days by somebody, maybe me, maybe somebody else. But we've got a pretty good story in mind for what is this thing and where the hell did he come from? To be told later. Right? To be continued. So most of the characters, we have general ideas of what they do. So the lady on the dinosaur above Iron Shell, that's Amazonica. They'll get their actual named introductions in issue 6. And we have some pretty cool ideas about her origin story. Just discussions. Nothing for hers on paper. It's just a bit of discussion we've had in the background with her of, what we'd like to introduce, how we would like to introduce her with an origin story. So a lot of this is just us kind of having fun with ideas we've had, and then as we kind of get an interest in a character and we want to bring them more into the story. So with Zemba, we had a lot of ideas, and then what had happened was we had a story event that was going to happen that you can see there, where in issue 4, Psycorn, our unicorn there, our zombie unicorn, gets in trouble, and he is sentenced to torture by Mordantix, who's our cannibal cyborg there. And we wanted a character to get involved and disrupt this torture. And Dennis and Jason and I said, why not Zemba? And then we had to say, well, if she gets involved to free Psycorn, why is she betraying the other villains? Right. So then it gave us a reason to go explore her day-to-day life. And then her day-to-day life explains why she decides to betray their leader, Umex. So there's going to be far-reaching consequences to her behavior, but you got to explain why. Well, why the hell is she doing this? So, of course, it's fun because in one of the panels where she's betraying the other villains, it says, as go read this story. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I got to go read one of the other stories in the issue to figure out why she's doing it. So it's fun. Yeah,
I love that. I love that kind of comic intertextuality.
I love it. I love that.
One of the things I miss most about a lot of modern comics is like you read through them and they'll talk about some obscure fact or whatever. And a lot of modern comics don't have the editor's note to let you know where you can learn the thing that you don't know.
So I love those editor's notes as a kid. I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. And we have leaned into that very heavily in Lords of the Cosmos, where there's a lot of editor's notes because we like having, go see issue 3 where this happens. Oh, okay. And again, the more issues we make, the more excuses it gives us to start rerouting into different stories, because the more you have, the more you can reroute your readers, and that's fun.
So, question here, sort of unrelated, sort of related. The cannibal robot thingy that you have, cyborg thingy, is his back a flesh pot? Is that what that is?
His whole origin and why he has a flesh pot is in issue 4, because he was in issue 4. His origin is issue 4 because he was a regular looking human, kind of a cybernetic Roman general type, and the main hero cut him in half in a large battle, and the other villains didn't want to really help him out that much, so they brought him back, so he had to be a cannibal cyborg, because some of the other villains were like, this is what we're going to turn him into. There you go. And one of the villains that was involved was Psycorn, who he's now torturing.
All right. That's some major league level villainy right there.
Yeah. So in the last issue we had to explain why Mordanix was so angry and wanted to go hurt Psycorn. So a lot of this is like, we had these characters and they're kind of like okay, here's some characters that we don't know much about. So as we want to introduce more plot elements, we have to explain, well, why the hell does this guy hate this other guy? And then you get to go have the background story. So in issue 4, Mordanix is very excited to torture him when he screwed up in issue 3. And he's very eager to be involved. And of course, there's the go read his story, The Hunger, in the end of issue 4. And you're like, oh. So yeah, that's a big flesh pot. And he ends issue 4 by murdering his love interest by being the first person he has to consume in his flesh pot.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not a bedtime story, kids.
No.
No. So which brings me to the question I have is, you've got so many of these fantastic elements, these wild elements that are in there. Is there any idea that you've had that is just like, nah, that's not a good fit for this world, or that's too much, or are there limiting principles, or is it a situation where you've built a world where just almost anything goes, like in terms of imagination?
It's funny. I had one pitch for a character from one of the writers that tried to make their origin as being like a U.S. Army experiment, and I was like, no, it just didn't seem right to me at all. And I was like, absolutely not. And they're like, oh, but it's kind of cool. And I was like, that whatever lines are in my head, that went outside it. And I was like, I kind of like that it's all kind of weird and alien. I couldn't think of a plausible reason that made sense for what this is.
Right. I mean, because they're on like a different planet or a different universe, right?
They are in a place.
Is there an America?
So we've implied very heavily that the main hero is some sort of Greek god that was thrown out of Olympus, right? But they are not on Earth. They are on a place called Aden. That's the name of the planet. And the planet is weird. We've implied that the planet is alive. At one point in issue 1, there's a gigantic eyeball that opens up on top of a mountain. And then the character that sees it is killed before he can tell anybody about it. And we also imply that there's machines that are all over the planet, that the planet is partially running. And then the characters are trying to figure out what the planet is. And the planet has magic. The planet has technology. And it's definitely not Earth. And is it in the past, future? I don't know. I always enjoyed, again, Third Earth from Thundercats, Eternia from He-Man, Mongo from Flash Gordon, that they were just kind of like fantastic other places to set the action. And even in Thundar, it was like future Earth.
Right.
And I, as a kid, always liked those kind of like, let's take it away from what we know. Let's not have it in New York City. Let's have it in Mongo. And so to us, Aiden is our fantasy playland that, again, we've got some ideas of where it's going to go. And I think eventually we're going to dive into what is this planet, but it's not Earth. And so that's a great question. And that was the only thing that I outright told a writer. I was just like, it's just like, if we want to keep it fantastic, I'm okay with a Greek god, but saying U.S. Army, I was like, too real. You know what I mean? I don't want, hey, I'm from New York City. Like, to me, that would break character from all this stuff.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the things that I have not seen it. But I have read about it. But one of the most surprising things to me in reading about and finding out about as an adult, because I wasn't aware of it as a child, but the Master of the Universe movie, where they go from eternity to LA. California or whatever. It was just like, but why? I mean,
because it's cheap. Because it's cheap. Yeah, and here's the thing, like, in 2007, Sci-Fi Network tried to redo Flash Gordon, and I'm a huge Flash Gordon fan. I was like, oh,
right.
that'll be fun. And the showrunner was like, well, we don't want to have rocket ships and, dragons and robots, because we really want to ground Flash Gordon. And, we don't want Ming the Merciless to be like this flamboyant villain. And I was just, and the show was really bad. And like the first episode was like, there was a car chase that ended with a fight in Flash Gordon's mom's kitchen. And I remember watching it and just being like, okay, first of all, you're cheap, and secondly, you don't get Flash Gordon, because like if you're doing Flash Gordon, the whole point is that it's freaking over the top.
There are certain properties I'll always feel can only be done in their original time period.
In the original Flash Gordon from Alex Raymond, I mean, it's robots, dragons, spaceship, Hawkmen, pretty girls, it's exotic, wild stuff, and that's it. So the whole thing is like amp it up to an 11. And if you think that's lame, why are you doing Flash Gordon? Do it wrong, right? Like, Flash Gordon is rocket ships, dragons, and guys with swords and laser guns. That's the whole point.
Well, and I mean, it's like I don't understand. Like, if you want to do a more straightforward science fiction, whatever, then do it, right? Like it'd be like if was it Ridley Scott who did Alien, who if instead of like making his own thing, he was like, well, what if it was a Star Trek episode, or whatever, right?
So what I really wouldn't want in things like Lords of the Cosmos, things like what I would not want in Lords of the Cosmos would be like, here's a police officer from Philadelphia. Like,
right.
Oh, you know what I mean? So
John McClane does not cameo.
No, I don't want John McClane, not in this. And here's the thing. I think we will do the main hero's origin story, and we've got a pretty good idea for that. And I think we are going to tie him back to Olympus as like a mythical god character. But even to me, that is, it's Earth, but it's fantasy Earth, right?
Right.
And then how can we get this character from, Olympus to here? But to me, that's not, but that's fantastic. Greek mythology is fantastic, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
So
Still, I'm curious why make a reference at all. Why not create your own Olympus and your own gods? And
I have my own reasoning for that. We might have to reveal that. I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to give away too many ideas. It's a great question, Cartoonicus. I'll answer that later. Good one.
So, yeah, you thought you'd catch him out there, man.
You thought that could be the smartest question anyone's asked me about issue 5, and I'm not going to answer a Cartoonicus because I don't want to give away some of my thoughts that aren't ready to be put out yet. But that is a good idea. I'll answer it at the correct time, Cartoonicus, and you know what? The Mattriarchy. Rewatch this when we do the Lord of the
Mattriarchy.
The Mattriarchy. You can rewatch this and you'll say, "Oh, that's what Jason was thinking of." Oh.
Gotcha.
That's what John was thinking of.
I am a fan of Greek mythology, so why did I not make up, or why would I not have him in his own Greek mythology? Because I like Greek mythology and I think it's freaking cool and it's underplayed. Yeah. There's my generic no spoilers answer.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, for anyone who does misread it as Mattriarchy, they're going to be wondering why the heck we only have a bunch of guys on the show.
Okay, yeah. Matt, see, well, hey, look, he called me John, Jacob, Joe, Josh. So I'm allowed to blow one thing up, right? So, Mattriarchy.
It's so justified. It's so justified.
Yeah, it's okay. We all make mistakes. Not here to judge.
Hey, I can't type it into YouTube search without it trying to say, "Did you mean Mattriarchy?"
Yep.
So my last,
like I said, which is crazy because like I've been doing the show and every one of them is labeled the Mattriarchy episode, whatever.
Yeah.
I've been doing that since 2018, 19, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but Cartoonicus, that's a great question, and I have a really good set of answers, but I really don't want to spoil. But great question, and I will answer it on a future episode of the Mattriarchy, or maybe the Cartoonicus. But no, that's the only idea that I ever shot down was like tying one of these characters into like the modern U.S. Army, like almost like a G.I. Joe origin story, and I was like, nope.
Well, and I mean, I can see the appeal for using the G.I. Joe story just because you're playing in all these other like toyish sandboxes, and it's got this toyetic feel to the whole property. So I can see saying, well, you can't, you need G.I. Joe, you need Mask, you need.
Speaking of Mask, so we have a promotional video, and we hired Doug Stone, who was the voice of Matt Tracker, to do the voiceover for our promo video.
Oh, really?
So there is a Mask connection to this project, and it's Doug Stone, who's really cool.
I didn't even listen to the video.
It's Matt Tracker.
I have to check it out. I guess we could check it out now. Really,
I think if you want, you can play it.
Let me see if it's set. If the screen share is set up to share audio. Whoops. Hang on.
Or it'll just be quiet with text and pictures moving around.
Well, I mean, I haven't heard a thing you guys have said all night.
Cartoonicus is savage. Like it's quiet, and then it's just pow.
That is how he does.
I'm down.
Okay, here we go. Let's check it out. Tell me if you can hear it.
Lords of the Cosmos, unite! The critically acclaimed comic book series by Jason Lenox, Dennis Fallon, and Jason Paul Natir returns with issue 5. Welcome back to Planet Aiden, a land where banished Greek gods, undead unicorns, cannibal cyborgs, and a vengeful dominatrix all wage war over a world run by a planet-sized machine. Lords of the Cosmos, issue 5. Featuring 3 mind-bending stories on 44 pages in black and white. Heroes are summoned and villains betray one another, forming new dark alliances as the main storyline continues in Enemy of My Enemy. Archvillain Zemba's daily routine of decadence, torture, and sadism is turned upside down in A Day in the Life, when domination and introspection collide. During the First Cosmic War, a group of Lords of the Cosmos commandos go deep behind enemy lines to discover the disciples of Umex's latest plan. In Pulse, Part 1, inspired by 1980s favorites like Masters of the Universe, 2000 AD, and Heavy Metal Magazine. Lords of the Cosmos 5 features a variety of unique rewards, including variant covers from Koi Fall, L.C. Freitas, Caesar, and Ignacio Ragnarsson. See why Indie Comics Dispatch says Lords of the Cosmos pulls all the nostalgia strings while managing to also create something new and unique. And Behold the Geek says Lords of the Cosmos is an insane sci-fi fantasy comic that takes no prisoners. Back Lords of the Cosmos issue 5, now on Kickstarter.
All right, there we go. Did it work?
I heard it.
Sweet.
Oh yeah.
Hooray!
Cartoonicus, you asked something during the video. I couldn't understand. What did you say?
Oh, I noticed there was nudity in this.
No, she's got a little X over her nipple there. You know.
Oh, that's officially in the comic?
Yeah. Well,
I assume
yeah.
that was just censoring for the video.
No. We did that, so there isn't actually nudity in the comic, right? It's like pasties, where it's like not quite.
Yeah, I've
Not
always,
quite.
even in my younger years, wondered why that would be a difference.
Like there's such a mind-blowing level of just double standards and stupidity where it's like, oh my god, a woman's nipple shield the youth, but man's nipple no one cares. It's the older you get, the stupider that stuff just if you think about it, it hurts your brain.
Well, I mean, for me, it's sort of the other direction. It's sort of like, you know, the people that are like, oh no, nipples are bad, but I mean, we don't want to show nipples, but like the rest of the breast, well, we'll let that slide. And it's like it's kind of all of a piece. Like, there was a when I was in school, I went to a Christian school, and there was a magazine in the library that was like I can't remember what it was, but it was the cover of this magazine had an old painting of Columbia or Victory or something. I can't remember for sure what it was anymore, but she was topless because this was, you know, that's how it was done in the 1800s. And there was a collection of the students that were absolutely incensed that there was something sort of kind of like a nipple on it. It wasn't I mean, it was a distance shot. It wasn't explicit or whatever, but like that was the part they were upset about, was that they imagined that they could see a nipple. And I'm like, dude, she's totally topless. Why is
yeah. So now Zemba
complaint.
Zemba, we had Zemba wear little pasties because her story starts where she gets out of bed. Because it's her day to day. So the story starts with her getting out of bed. And of course, her bed has people crucified on the bedposts and everything else. And then she just is like, good morning. Welcome to my day. Right. So we had to start her day when she gets out of bed, because that's where I start my day. And you probably start your day. So we wanted to show you Zemba getting out of bed. So not quite naked, but enough we get it. So Cartoonicus, good eyes there. Good eyes.
So Tank has said, I just came into this.
Tagatron. Well, I will say this. So actually, I never had a spicy cover, but one of my guest cover artists, L.C. Freitas, does a lot of nude covers, and was, of course, like, I assume here's the nude version of the cover I did. And I was like, no, okay, wow. And I asked some backers and friends, and I was like, what do you think? And everyone's like, you should have, if you've got it, have it out there. So there actually is a spicy, fully nude cover of Zemba in the campaign you can get if you would like that. So it's the first time we've done that. So she is a nude variant cover if you would like to get one as a backer. So we do have that. I'd never done that before. I don't know if I would have gone out to do it specifically, but LC was just like, hey, I've got it. You want it? And you're like, oh, okay.
If you've already drawn her naked, we might as well.
Well, what he did was he drew her naked, and then like his process, he goes naked, then he draws the clothes on it. He scans it at each point. He goes, here, I got both for you. Done. So we do have a nude. There's a nude cover of her, but only on the cover as a variant. So Tankatron, there you go. That's all the spite. We've got cannibals and zombie cyborgs and zombie unicorns and cyborg cannibals. I got to get it all the horrible correctly put together.
So here's a question on this. And this is, you probably don't have a number on here.
All right,
exactly.
I'm ready.
But I know we've talked a lot about Zem. We've talked a lot about her story and how it plays into the mainline story. If you were to split this issue up percentage wise between heroes and villains, like who gets the most of issue 5?
I'd say it's about 55% villains and then about 45% heroes. Because the main story is about half heroes, and then it kind of like switches to the villain story about midway through. Because what happens in the first half of the story is it picks up at the end of issue 4. The main hero decides to come out of retirement, and his first move is to summon the missing Lords of the Cosmos that have gone into hiding. So he activates his sword, which we meet in issue 4, that talks and is magic, and he fires off a living triple bolt of lightning that goes around the world. So like the turtle with the battleship cannons is the last one it finds. So it searches for all the heroes, and when they see those 3 bolts of lightning, they know it's time to come back to the base. It's time to fight, right? Kind of like the Thundercats or the bat signal, right? He's summoning his troops. But the lightning travels where all the villains are too, and then that's where the story shifts into why is Zemba going to where this guy's being tortured. So it's a storytelling device to go to the villain story. And then Zemba's story is all villains. And then the third story is Pulse, which is the Lords of the Cosmos characters in a 1980s action film that was mentally inspired by Rambo First Blood Part 2. So it starts off with the Lords of the Cosmos have a strike team in the war before the current war they're in, and they are going to infiltrate an enemy base run by the Disciples of Umex, and it is a strike team led by Stinger, who we met in issue 3, who's the bug with a shotgun, and he's like the angry drill sergeant, and his team is a rhinoceros and a tip of the cap to the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz. We call him Robot with an Axe. There is a lizard cowboy called Chuck, and a pixie, and some guys with guns, and some cats, and it's and then a samurai. That. So they're kind of this, just complete, and then some backers. One's a cyborg gladiator, and another guy is like a skateboarder on a floating skateboard. So they're the commando team that has been tasked to go infiltrate this gigantic military base. And my favorite part is probably Cowboy Chuck, who's a very serious cowboy, but he's a lizard. And,
yeah. That's awesome. But
so there's
it's a big mess of folks. It's a very motley crew, and not an American among them.
Well, maybe the lizard secretly is American, but he's not really, we don't know, right? Maybe I said, no, he can't be from America. It'll spoil everything.
There you go.
Well, no, the lizard is secretly running the government, remember?
Cartoonicus is like, he's on point, man. He's got it. But no, so I would say it's about 55% villains and about 45% heroes. There's a scene near the end of Pulse where the heroes they take over a guard post to commandeer a gigantic quarry truck, one of those gigantic trucks.
Yeah.
That was cool. And the rhinoceros is driving it. And I thought it was one of the funniest things that the artist had done, Sasha, because he just has this motley crew of characters piling into like the cab of the truck, and the rhinoceros is just driving it, and it's just and it's fun because sometimes it's fun to put ridiculous things in comic books where it's like, how would a rhinoceros drive a truck? It's like, it's just don't. It looks cool.
I saw that image, but I think it may have been on your Facebook.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I'm gonna shoot that page over to you on Facebook Messenger real quick. You can flash it up on the show. Just hold tight, Matt.
It really does feel as if they're, all these characters were action figures that came off of store shelves and were brought to life.
That's the feel, man. I've always wanted this to feel like we've always wanted Lords of the Cosmos to have the feel that you are experiencing something that seems, gee willikers, this is like a popular toy, or it's a toy line, it's a cartoon show from yesteryear, and all these things would be on blister packs. And I apologize, I'm on my work laptop. I don't have all the art files on this drive. I just realized what I was doing. So I don't have a handy image of Rhinoceros driving a truck. My bad.
That's fine.
But yeah, I always wanted that feel for this, where it's like that again, that you just would feel that these characters were just off a shelf or off a show, and that we're just playing it straight. Here's the Rhino, and here's a bug with a shotgun, and here's a guy with a gun, and here's it kind of looks like the Wizard of Oz Tin Man, and here's a zombie unicorn and a cannibal. They all seem like play sets and toys, and if you go down in the campaign, one of the things, and I don't know if you remember this, Matt, from issue 4, but we've done it on every issue, is the back of each book has a toy, a custom sculpt of one of the characters as a toy. And then my friend Jared Brown has always done some Photoshop magic to make it look like a blister pack that you would have bought off a toy shelf rack in the 80s. And then the inside back cover, remember how I was saying how much I like those little editorial notes? Something else I was with as a kid was G.I. Joe and Transformers always would have a stat sheet on like the back of the toy, like this character's strength and cunning and intelligence and whatever. So the inside back cover of every issue is the back of the toy, so it has like a little description of the character and then like their stats. So there's a lot of stuff that I just liked as a kid that was like, well, I liked it, so we're going to shove it in this thing and make sure that if you like that, you're going to be, hey, I remember that. This really seems like a toy, right? So again, if you're getting that feel that these seem like right off a shelf, then we're doing our job. But keep scrolling down. We got lots of add-ons, but the toy is kind of near the end of the campaign. There she is.
Look at that.
How about that?
Yeah. See,
so is the toy's physical then?
Yeah,
they got a picture of them shooting it here.
Yeah, see,
wow.
There's us shooting her at a little photo shoot. Yeah, her stat sheet, it's everything.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, we have a limited amount that my sculptor will build. He said he'd build up to 5 for backers. I think we sold 2.
Well, how much fun is that?
We wanted to give readers the feels. Cartoonica said it sure seems like a toy off the shelf, but we're trying to give you the feeling. We really wanted to. I like nostalgia. I think a lot of nostalgia is mismanaged now. I think a lot of it is remember this, and it's just it doesn't stand on its own.
Right. So, right. Instead of like using the past as a springboard to build something, or a framework to set something new in, it's just the remember this? It's like leftovers. And I mean, I like leftovers, but for entertainment, that's what reruns exist for. I don't
so this is my stance for this with Lords of the Cosmos, that and Cartoonicus sums it up perfectly. He got a feeling, right? And I like that. And we're trying to lean into that feeling. So if you remember that stuff and it feels that way and you get an extra feel like, hey, I love when toys had that. I see they're doing that too. That provides an extra bit of flavor for a reader that might remember that. However, if you're younger and you didn't live through that stuff, I always wanted Lords of the Cosmos to stand on its own to a new reader. And I think that we have created a book that stands on its own with no nostalgia because it's well done. But if you remember this stuff, it gives you the feeling, but it's not derivative. It's original. Mm-hmm. I feel that when we're giving you nostalgia, it's a bonus on top of a solid foundation versus like, hey, do you remember this? Here it is. And you're like, what's the story? And there's been a lot of, that recently with entertainment of things that are just kind of bad copies of older things, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But it's like, I get you want to point out things that I remember, but give me something solid that you got to earn it. And I've always felt that Lords of the Cosmos has earned some of those callbacks. And I think they add to what we're doing as a solid foundation.
Yeah. And I think that's a fun place to be at, right? When you're trying to look at that I think that's a well articulated goal, and it's I think it's neat to be able to say, well, this is what I'm going for, and I think we're getting there. So, and of course, you've been able to, you're 5 issues in, and of course we've talked a little bit about how the market is not what it was. Do you have a lot of like feedback from longtime readers who even if they're not being able to chip in, they're still in support of the project?
Almost all the feedback I've gotten from this has been very positive over the years. I've had 1 or 2 reviewers that have kind of nitpicked some things in the book, and some of the nitpicks were things that we should have done better. And I feel that we've tried to even take some of that criticism over the years to try to do better. We're not perfect. But I think for the most part, we've really tried to give an A effort to this book. And I think it's a fun read. And I think, it's for the most part appreciated and well received. The readers, the biggest thing I heard was, when's the next book coming out? Right. So it's like, we're working on it. And I have an end in mind for the series. I think it's going to go about 10 issues. Plus we want to do a issue 0 bonus origin issue.
Okay.
Which we want to try to explain, why do they call them the Lords of the Cosmos? And that's kind of where it all ties back into, are these guys Greek gods or whatever. And so that you might see in issue 0. So I'd say overall, all said and done, with an issue 0, 11 total issues. And I think we'll be able to tell the whole story to an ending. And then we can decide if we want to go further than that. But I think that will complete the main stories to go 10 issues. So we're about halfway right now.
All right. That was on my list of questions. So you beat me to it.
I beat you to it.
Okay.
So, I mean, the main story is going towards the heroes and the villains are going to have one final showdown. That's where this is going. And they keep talking about it, and they keep, if you read the main story, it's like, well, this is just leading up to a big fight is all it's leading up to. It kind of wears its colors on its sleeve, where the bad guys have, if you remember in issue 4, the bad guys have a jamming system that they shut off intentionally. And then the villain running jamming creature is like, but if we shut this off, the Lords of the Cosmos will know what we're doing. And the main villain's like, oh yeah, shut it off, because he wants a fight. And then that's where the good guys decide to come out of their self-imposed retirement at the end of issue 4. And then they're summoning their crew back together to get everyone together to go to where all the villains are. It's pretty transparent. It's pretty simple.
Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
100%. So, I mean, it's all leading up to Hammer meets Anvil in the next issue. So is that... Go ahead.
So is the big fight scene you're talking about, is that a full 5 issues worth of fighting, or is it there's twists and turns?
I think the fighting is going to be like 3 issues of just fighting. Yeah, because we built up so kind of where I see it going is issue 6 is going to be they're all together moving ahead, and issue 7 will be initiating, like they will all get together, and then 8 and 9 is going to be fighting, and then 10 will be like fight end, and then like, okay, now what?
Actual combat in an action comic? No way.
Well, the side stories have been giving you a lot of fighting, and there's been some fighting along the way in the main story. So we're giving you little tidbits. Well, actually not tidbits. There's a lot of fighting in this book. The side stories have given us all kinds of excuses to kill people and fight and everything else. So lots of fighting.
So yeah, it was part of
Um,
what Cartoonicus was specifically commenting on is
yeah.
last week we started an
Oh,
intensive
it wasn't
review
even
of
that.
the
Just
first.
all of
Well,
superhero
yeah,
comics at this
but
point.
it's of Tom King's Wonder Woman, and
Hmm.
while there is fighting in it, yeah, there's also a lot of talking and talking and talking and saying things that don't make sense and more talking, and then a little bit of fighting that bridges the way to more talking. So, of course, it's a narrative. He's building it up over 6 issues, so it may take a little while to get on the wind there. But we read the first 3 issues of his series for last week's show, and nobody was particularly impressed. So it was a fun conversation, though. We really enjoyed the last week's show. Yeah.
More
I
fighting.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
And here's the thing. I would say, so for example, in this issue of Lords of the Cosmos, there's a lot of fighting going on. And even the main story, there's a lot of summoning and gathering heroes, and then it turns into a pretty knockdown, drag out fight with villains killing villains. So you definitely get violence in the main story. The Zemba story is just weird and dark with there's a cold gladiatorial fight sequence in it where she has people that have to fight each other for her post lunch entertainment. And then the action hero story, there's quite a bit of fighting in that. Robot with an axe axes a guy in a big military suit. It's pretty cool. So
yeah, Robot Guy with an Axe has got a fun design. I was looking at that. I hadn't picked up on it before we started the stream, but it's got a fun design.
Yeah. So there's quite a bit of talking and fighting in this issue. I feel that we give you a lot to digest and look at.
Which is what you want. You don't want to come to a comic and be bored. Nobody wants that.
Well, and I think Lords of the Cosmos 5 gives you a punch in the face. It's a fun book. It's got a lot going on. It's different tones. It's 40. It's a king size comic, man. It's just, it's a lot. And it took me about 2 years to put this book together. So yeah, there he is right there. He's sitting next to Jomo Arigato, our samurai character. And there's the lizard cowboy. See him? He says, "I believe it when I see it." He's got a 6-shooter.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's definitely not Rango though.
No, he's not Rango. He's Cowboy Chuck is his name.
Chuck. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, I'm going to grab the link here and drop that. It is in the description. I put that in there when I put the stream together, but I'm also going to grab it here and we'll put it in the chat. Anybody who is watching, if you guys want to go check it out, feel free. That is how it goes. We do have one comment I want to get a share from Fizz.
All right.
Fizz says, you developed actual characters for your fantasy setting. Maybe the Japanese can learn from this. I don't know if I agree with the sentiment, the last part of the sentiment. I may have just been reading different books than you, but I do think it's important to have characters that give the setting a room to breathe. So well, I don't want to necessarily cut anyone short, but I do, and I didn't talk to you about this ahead of time. I do have to leave a little early today, which is part of why I was wanting to start right on time.
No worries.
So, I think next week, the several of us from last week are going to be back to talk about Wonder Woman's 4, 5, and 6 to finish out the storyline. I do know Cartoonicus will not be here.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have to carry on without you, man. You'll be missed, but you might be happier.
I'm sure you'll survive.
Oh,
I don't want to mess with Cartoonicus to be out developing.
You guys will be partying.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the story, and I am hoping I will be able to sit down and get October all scheduled out over the weekend, so I can have so that everybody who tunes in on the regular can know like we used to back in the day, know what the shows were going out there. So it wasn't just Reese figuring it out, 3 days before and telling like 2 people. So.
But is it the right 2 people or the wrong 2 people?
I mean, it's whoever. Yeah, Jason got a hold of me back in July about this, and so we had plenty of lead time to make it happen. So somebody had to be on the ball. So
sure.
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, that's the show. We're gonna go ahead and cut it. And thank you so much all for tuning in. And check out Jason's comic if you feel like it's your thing. But I love the amount of passion he's put into it. And we will check all you guys out next week. Until then, get out there and read some comics. Later.